I have item number 9. I should know by Monday if there's going to be anything. Councilor Caldwell is not here yet, so I'll skip over to Councilor Green.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 18 is the Crouse Marshall District improvement.
You probably know.
Who's the best person to talk about that?
No one's here?
I'll see Tim or anybody.
Yes.
We can come back to that one if you want. So the medical billing is the next one.
Councilors, Brad O'Connor, Commissioner of Finance. So we are seeking approval to enter into a one-year contract with Multimed to do the billing for our ambulance program. They charge a fee based on the amounts that they bill. So they're charging 9% is what's proposed for non-Medicaid monies collected. And $19.50 for Medicaid if they're the primary payer, $6.50 where Medicaid is the secondary payer.
And this will be RFP'd after the first year, right?
That's right. And there is, I made some late changes to this that I asked the clerk to push through the agenda. The agenda says that it is not to exceed $250,000. That was the original amount that I submitted, but for the one-year contract, this would be not to exceed $75,000.
That's what was confusing, right?
Okay.
That was in the amended agenda that you sent.
The
Letter that I didn't catch.
the updated letter that I just sent yesterday afternoon was for $75,000. The original letter I sent was $250,000. So that.
I have a question about that. So the 75,000, that's not a flat fee paid to the billing. It's all the individual billing won't total more than 75,
That's right.
correct? Okay, good. Thanks.
Other questions on this item? Okay, thanks, Brad. Item 20, 21, 22 are tax settlements, so we'll discuss that in executive session. Mr. Ennis, item 23.
All right, good afternoon, councilors. So the two items that are submitted, they're companion pieces in the fact that they both were part of a process the city undertook, really regarding significant delinquency with properties that had suspected contamination or were considered brownfield. So the name of the program was a brownfield lien sale program, where if we had an interested developer that was able to purchase the tax liens on the property, give them the ability to go through a judicial foreclosure process to be able to take title on the properties and ultimately plan them for redevelopment. Now, this program and this process, we had undertaken this prior to COVID-19. And so basically when the pandemic first struck, these two particular owners for the properties at 700 South Geddes as well as 301 South Geddes were both in the process of undertaking the foreclosure before redeveloping the properties. Previously, the lien sales were already approved by the Common Council at the time, dating back to 2019. However, when New York State mandated the court closures, those foreclosures had stalled, ultimately taking over 2 years to be able to then move forward through that judicial foreclosure process. Ultimately, the request that you have before you is that both owners have now taken title on these properties. However, at the time, before the foreclosures could be completed, it was the previous owners that had not been paying their taxes, and these tax bills continue to increase and grow over time. Now, as we're beginning to work with the redevelopment of the two properties, the taxes belonging to the previous owner, the council would have the ability to waive those to assist and facilitate with the larger redevelopment. So we've been having discussions with these two owners. Both are going to be undertaking significant renovations, bringing these properties back online. And so one of the discussions we've been having is to be able to revisit, again, some of the delinquent taxes that have accrued dating back to approximately 2019 to 2022. To be able to assist in this process. So happy to answer any questions, but this is certainly one that we've been working on and worked with the council for quite some time.
I strongly urge that we go ahead with this. These are two real problem properties, and I'm glad that we have two entrepreneurs who are going to do something with them. And it just in the interest of fairness, they weren't able to acquire anything during the court closures during the COVID, so. I know it's sort of unusual that we do this, but this is something I think merits it, this case, these two cases do.
Do we have the total amount?
Sure, so it's built in, yeah, I think it's looking at approximately 12,000 and 13, I think it's built within the ordinance here.
26,000.
But any other questions on these two? Okay.
Often do we do stuff like this?
Right.
So it's typically, the brownfield lien sale process was something that we undertook at the time, really as an innovative approach, because for such a long time, these properties have sat vacant and dormant because of the city falling into the chain of title, ultimately being responsible for the cleanup. Now, in 2020, we were able to work with the New York State DEC to undertake an agreement where the city would no longer fall under the liability of the cleanup once we take title. Well, now the process that we do is very similar to residential properties with the land bank. When we foreclose on tax delinquent properties, commercial and brownfield sites can also now be transferred to the land bank and put back into productive use. So this process here that we're talking about today, we actually no longer use this because of that DEC agreement, and now we're able to facilitate those to the land bank as well. So since 2020, I would say we foreclosed on approximately 10 to 15 brownfield sites, which is something we didn't have that tool when these lien sales were being done.
Okay.
The issue of chain of liability stymied us from taking a lot of properties that needed to be addressed, so. And that was addressed, actually, it was the IDAs across the state that sort of like led the charge to change this in the.
Yeah, I will say we were the second municipality in the state to execute this. It's jointly with the city and the county with the DEC, but we're really one of the first to pilot this, and we've seen great success with it so far.
Yeah, it's great. I was only going to say, that if there are barriers like this, it'd be great to do more, similar stuff to make sure we get stuff back into productive use. But from what you're saying, it seems like with the land bank situation now, we don't.
Yeah. So essentially
we'll
these.
See more of those. We'll see less barriers and more stuff going back to productive use.
Exactly. Yeah. And these two properties you have before you, these are the last two that fall under that brownfield lien sale category. So we're expecting to not have to do this going forward.
Great.
All right. Council, the only thing I'll mention is I know Kraus Marshall was kind of just discussed. Dave Mankiewicz is here to be able to also answer any questions about that one. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, one more thing here. When they do that with the land bank, is there any procedure, like we know that many property owners have very deceptive use of LLCs. Mm-hmm. Is there any way to ensure that like someone who owed the taxes doesn't, through a deceptive chain of command, get the taxes dropped and then retain the property?
Sure. I can tell you, so there's so few that have gone through the lien sale process like this. And so before anything even gets to the point of a waiver, we have very intensive conversations about the ultimate use of the property. So in these two particular cases, we've had direct conversations with the owners now, recently since they foreclosed. They are submitting plans and permitting documents. For example, one of them is going to be repurposed as a restaurant. That special permit will be coming before this group once it's ready. And so ultimately we are looking to make sure that this is not simply like some sort of rearrangement of the legal entities, as we know the individuals behind these projects and we're working with them to get them finished.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mr. Ennis, before you sit down, quick question for you. It might be Neil too. Did you guys do a test run yesterday on the scooters and the bikes?
Did we do a test run?
Yeah, was there a test run? Because I've seen them suckers all over the city in groves.
So I will tell you, we did increase the fleet size, which is, and through working with them, we wanted to make sure there was greater accessibility around this. I can't speak to anything specific to yesterday. I just know that we recently did a press release with VO, VO is our contracted operator for the system. And we've seen, as the weather's getting warmer, that ridership is going
There's
up.
about 50 people on them yesterday, just all together. So I thought maybe you gave a free ride or something.
They were going to the baseball game.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was a big coordinated ride to the baseball game or something.
okay. That's
Yeah,
all.
and I mean, Neil, of course, can speak to it better, but one thing I will say is that with our new operator, I mean, all of those programming opportunities, engagement activities, I mean, this year, as the weather gets warmer, you're going to see a lot more of that type of activity.
What's our percentage on those?
Our percentage?
Yeah.
We do not, so the city did not have to invest anything into the
Right.
program, but it's all private, it's a private operator that's running it.
But what do we get out of it?
There's no revenue towards the city directly.
Okay.
I will tell you, and across the country, sometimes cities themselves will invest and have to put in capital costs into a project like this. This was at no cost to the city, which was very attractive to us.
It's
Okay.
engagement.
Yeah. Yeah, so ride your bikes and scooters, so, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So we'll do item 25 next, and then we'll come back to 18.
Afternoon, councilors. Name's Dave Proack. I'm Director of IT. Item 25 before you today is we're asking you to allow us to proceed with a master services agreement with a company called Navient. So we have used an imaging software called OnBase for 15, 18, 20 years, long time. OnBase was made by a company called Highland. Highland sold that part of the business to a company called Navient. So this is just kind of arranging all the deck chairs so that we can proceed with our new master services agreement. We have a pretty sizable user base in OnBase. None of that is changing other than the title and the licenses and professional services we procure no longer go with Highland, they now go with Navient. So this would allow us to proceed with an agreement that would oversee all those licenses and expenses. Any questions, please?
I'm a new counselor. Can you just give me a little more detail on what that program is or how it's used?
It's imaging software, so we use it to catalog and retrieve anything that is not in a non-digital form. When you scan something into your copier and you make it a PDF and it's now searchable based on the text in there, we would use that with OnBase. It got its start back in the day when people in code enforcement were taking pictures with digital cameras. Now you've got pictures on a card and your computers are over here. So we would use OnBase to sweep those photos in and track that sort of thing. So we have thousands and thousands and thousands of images with OnBase and a long history with them.
Does the water department use that software?
I don't know.
Because I think, weren't they just before us asking for money to be able to digitize?
No, that's DPW, that's the sewer department, and they've got kind of a special project they're working on. We're still encouraging them to jump on board the OnBase bus, and we'll see where that goes.
Okay.
Good question.
Any other questions on this item?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay. Item 18, the Crouse Marshall Business Improvement
Ready?
District.
Thank you, Counselor. Sorry to be late. Since the Business Improvement District
You want
on...
to just introduce yourself for new counselors?
Oh, sorry. Dave Mankiewicz, and I'm usually with Center State CEO, but I'm also in the role of being staff to the Crouse Marshall Business Improvement District, and I'm a member of the board. So since the time that the district began and they built, you recall, we built close to $2 million worth of improvements all around the Marshall Street and Cross Avenue. There's been an agreement between the city and the CMBID relative to major repair or replacement of those items as they get broken or like trees die, to be able to deal with that. Sometimes the bricks pop out of the sidewalk strip that have to be put back down. You have to hire somebody to do that. We have to deal with broken street furniture, trash cans that give out. I mean, there's just the normal wear and tear that would go on. And so every year there's items that we either do major repairs or replacement on. So the agreement we have with the city is that the cost of those items we split up to a total of $25,000 for both parties. So both parties can put into up to $12,500 into the agreement. Anything over $25,000, Crouse Marshall has to pay 100% of it. And if there's anything, there's also a control in terms of ordering items. If we order a trash can, we can't order a super deluxe trash can that costs a lot of money. Otherwise, we have to pay for it. So we keep a pretty tight rein on what those expenditures are. So for every year from year, it changes in terms of what we have to do based on what's happened up there. So what we've had is a series of 5-year agreements. The last one we signed started in 2017, so it'll expire on June 30th of this year. What we'd like to do is put another 5-year agreement in place, basically with the same terms and conditions, the same amount of money, the same matching amounts. The only difference is that you've changed your sidewalk policy since this last piece of legislation was written. So the sidewalk language in here probably has to change. But that's one paragraph. Otherwise, everything would pretty much stay the way it is.
Questions on this? Okay, thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Caldwell.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is Julie here? I have items 10 and 17. Julie will go through them.
Good afternoon, Julie LaFave, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. Item number 10 is to accept a donation from the Community Foundation on behalf of an anonymous donor. The donor would like to donate up to $6,000. You recall that you approved expenses for Hershey Park. We want to make that more affordable for the youth, so we're going to pay for their meals, or through this, pay for their meals on that trip, so the kids only have to pay for a meal. Sorry, this is for meals at the park and drinks at the park. So the kids now, their contribution will only be if they stop on the way there and on the way, so breakfast, dinner. Or they're welcome to pack a lunch, or we can pack, we'll have sandwiches. The remaining, the donor would like us to coordinate through local business owners or food trucks or restaurant owners to do various pop-ups at the parks where we have the pools, where we have aquathon, where we have things, the concerts, movies, whatever, and just provide food, healthy-ish options.
So Julie, right now, the kids have to pay, so you're saying the food is paid for what right now?
So right now, the only approval that we got through the council was for the purchase of the admission ticket and the purchase or the renting of the bus, the charter bus. So if the kids wanted to eat, there is a catering service there at Hershey Park. It's $25 or so, and then there's unlimited drinks throughout the day. This donor would like to pick up that bill for the kids. So the kids, their financial is just if they want to buy like a McDonald's breakfast where their bus stops and then a dinner on the way home.
So my suggestion, so my suggestion is food is very imperative. This is good, but maybe we need to come back to make sure that there is breakfast and dinner on the way back.
So
kids.
I've asked my staff to make sure we pack sandwiches and fruit, that we just have something so if kids don't. The idea too is that we're going to buy 125 tickets into Hershey Park. If we do make this free for the kids, there's no guarantee that the child shows up for the bus. So we do want them to contribute $20 just to hold their spot on the bus. But we've told them, if you don't spend your $20 at the end of the day, you get all of your change back or all of your money back. So that's just the way for the kids to truly commit that they're going to come to Hershey Park. Because if we say it's free.
No, I understand that. I just don't want them to not have food.
We will
back.
absolutely, I promise you.
Okay.
I've already talked about how we need to save a row in each bus for a cooler.
Okay.
Water, drinks, sandwiches, healthy snacks.
Okay.
So can you clarify what if it's free means? I thought this was completely paid for the kids that participate.
That was for admission, and it was free for the admission. It was free for admission and for the charter bus.
Right.
So that's what you guys previously approved. So the trip there was free, courtesy of you.
Right.
This, we realized the kids will want to eat there, and instead of putting, they wouldn't be forced to do catering, we just wanted to make it easier for our kids. This donor had already come to the plate and said, I want to give $6,000 this summer for food, had actually specified food, and I said, okay, well, would you consider the Hershey Park, the catering meal for these kids? And they said yes. And then we expect that will cost about $2,500, so the remaining will be this summer across the city, food options just to be given out.
Okay. So not if free, it is free.
Absolutely, yes.
Thanks.
Are you gonna,
If you approve this.
are you gonna select the food trucks, or are they gonna be in the parks?
We are going to select them. We're open to suggestions. We want it to be, obviously, we want it to benefit a Syracuse-based business, preferably a small, not a big franchise, not something, people who truly, we want to support a business through this as well as putting food in mouths. Any questions on that one? Okay. Item number 11, Cumulus Media approached us. We would like to enter an agreement with us. There's no financial arrangement here other than we provide 100 gift certificates for one-day golf passes to them. They will sell them. In exchange, they will give $7,600 of on-air promotions to us. The idea is that their listening area is much broader than the city of Syracuse. There's a lot of people who still do not know that we have golf courses. So the idea that this will boost people coming, and it will get new people coming, because our regular golfers already buy season passes. So we don't think this will actually impact our bottom line very much. We expect it to boost it.
I have questions. So you're giving the radio stations our vouchers to golf at the courses,
Yes,
and in return, they're selling them, they're keeping the profits,
yes.
and we are not getting paid for those vouchers other than the promotion. So in essence, $13,600. Oh, no.
6,000.
In essence, 6,000 is,
Gift, yeah, a pass is $6, so 100 passes at $6. That is correct, but the idea is that people who did not know about our golf courses will see that we're a fabulous value. Most people don't know about us. You can golf 9 holes for $6. That these people will return, that they may see a season pass with us is only $100. So the idea is that people will come, they will bring other people who will pay. Their original request was for us to give, I think, 50 season passes, and we said no, because that would have an impact on our revenue, because that's where majority of our money comes from. Majority of our revenue comes from the people who purchase season passes. So we said no, would you consider this? And they said yes.
radio.
Okay.
Yep.
Item number 12, if you remember last year, we had the Cuse Quines program, the Haven at Sconda. They came to us, we offered basically bringing the horses into the city. We want to continue a partnership with them. However, they come from Canastota. What we realized last year is the program may have been offered at 9 a.m., but they have to load the horses up at 5 a.m. And if at 5 a.m. it was raining, they couldn't bring the horses. They also had to rent a U-Haul every single time. And then by 9 o'clock, we had to cancel at 5 a.m., but people didn't understand. It was very confusing. However, we still want to provide that experience. So we are working with them that we'd like to bring, this is for this fiscal year before the school year gets out. We'd like each community center to take a trip there, and they'll provide the same experience, but actually a little bit more intense, more hands-on.
Item 13.
Item number 13, Rec Desk is our software provider. Through the pandemic, we pay a contract fee. We actually had more, they charge us based on what we anticipate our revenue and actually what our memberships are, even if there's no dollar signs on the memberships. We exceeded that amount last year through the contracted year, so this is a surcharge, basically, that we made more money than we thought we were going to be.
Any questions? Item 14.
Item 14, we have Big Rig Days. This is just authorized payment to the balloon artist at $250.
Any questions?
Item 15, annual Rose Day ceremony is in June. It has always been an agreement that the city books the performer for that, and that is Blake Prost. He's a local. He lives right across the street from Thornton Park. He performed it last year and cost $300.
Any questions? Item 16.
16 and 17 are, 16 is our annual waiver of residency request. We do this every year for lifeguards. We have never hit that 100 number, but we just like to cover ourselves so that the pools are not impacted. This year, I've added a request for number 17 for our summer programs. We have a number of city school district employees who know the kids, have a relationship with the kids, have expressed interest to want to work the summer programs for us, but we've never been able to because they're not residents. So this is a waiver request for just summer programming. This is not for them to become year-round employees, but because they have a relationship with the kids and they have experience with the type of programming we want to offer. So,
Can I ask the question?
yes.
First, I want to start on 16 because we talked a lot about over the years about looking at our aquatics at Nottingham and the different schools. How are we doing with that?
We do lifeguarding classes year-round. We have a very regular communication cycle with the schools. The pools, the pandemic also has had a hit. We weren't able to offer lifeguarding classes until very recently because, their faces, when you're doing life-saving skills, you're very close. So we're getting that back up. We're now also getting more into our community centers, which was the plan before, but again, that was put on hold. Getting those kids first swim lessons and then continuing the relationship with them. So it's a constant process, and it's one we recruit there first, basically. We do recruit there first. It's just
So have we started recruitment for the lifeguards?
We start recruitment as soon as the season ends last summer.
So how many city residents came through?
A lot of people won't commit until summer's close. I don't have a number right now. And that's not even just an aquatics thing, that's just college students right now, high school students, they're not thinking about the summer right now, they're thinking about school, they're thinking about that. They'll start thinking about their employment when it starts warming up outside.
Okay. And on 17, I hear what you're saying about the relationship with the kids. We don't have any teachers in the city that have relationships with the kids?
It's just been a struggle. I don't know exactly who lives in the city, who doesn't, but it seems to be the ones who express the interest do not.
You know, Julie,
Yeah.
Commissioner, rather, I can't believe out of 4,000 employees, 4,500 employees in city Syracuse has, that we don't have city residents or school teachers that would want to work in the city
Right.
parks department. We wouldn't have relationships.
How do they know, find out about, oh, I'm sorry.
Go on, go on.
I was just gonna ask, to build on that, how do they know about this? How do they get to know that?
We do a lot of things with the school district. I mean, we have programming in the schools. We work around their permits, our permits. We constantly communicate with them. We have programming that we go there. We're invited to their fairs, the carnivals, and we talk with the teachers. It's not the highest paying job, so that might be part of it as well. It's just a summer temp job. It's under $20 an hour, so that might be part of it right there. Some people want to take the summer off. I can't speak for those 4,000 people. I could just tell you that it's always been a problem.
So
Well, not with this piece, because this is the first time you brought this piece.
We lost a number. I mean, we don't publicly tell you guys that, throughout the summer, we lose staff at a high rate.
Right, but I'm not talking about the staff loss, I'm talking about the waiver of residency for the city schools.
It was a request to try something new this year. And if you guys say no, then, the programming will still be offered, but we do always go, our preference is always city residents always will be, well, it always has to be, but even when it comes to lifeguards, we've never turned down a city resident who wants to be a lifeguard or who wants to be a pool aide or night security associated with the pools.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that either, but on both the councilor and Madam President's questions, what kind of marketing do you do to reach out to them? I know you said you start at the end of last season, but I'm thinking we've got the 4 high schools in the city. They all have pools, which is an amazing resource. They all have gym instruction that includes those pools. And I know there's a girls' team at Henniger combined with Nottingham, I believe. And I know that one of my neighbors was just acknowledged in the Academic All-American as a swimmer. So have you marketed specifically to our swim teams? Because those swimmers are logical candidates to be lifeguards.
On Monday, if you'd like, I can bring the head of aquatics to come address that specifically, because I can just give you very general answers.
Mm-hmm.
He can come on Monday, he or his rep can come. I can say that a lot of times athletes or those involved in swims are not great candidates because they are still swimming all summer long.
My daughter was a swimmer, and we never knew of the opportunities in the city, so we always looked for them, and we looked like to Beeville and Manlius because it seemed like they were more coordinated, but it was crickets when it came to the city, so I really would love to encourage that among our city student base especially. And like you said, giving them a first choice is great, but to automatically approve the waiver, let's work a little harder to try to get them, so.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
And those are all of my items. Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Paniagua.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right, so I have items 26 to 29, 26 and 27 will be withdrawn. 28 and 29, it is a labor agreement between the City of Syracuse and Local 400. It's to, up there. And we have, oh, there we are.
Good afternoon, councilors. Corey Driscoll Dunham, Chief Operating Officer. So 28 and 29 is a labor agreement that we have reached with Local 400. And there are a few tweaks that we'll be submitting a revised agreement. It's just we left off President's Day, little things here and there. But just to kind of provide some highlights, as many of you know, Local 400 was a high priority contract for us. And in some conversations I've had with councilors, we spoke to department heads to say, what are the issues that you have? What are the concerns you have with the Local 400 workforce? And, just to give you some idea, there was no requirement of, if you were going to be late or not come to work because you were sick, there was no requirement by which you had to call us an hour ahead of time or half an hour ahead of time or 5 minutes ahead. There was no requirement. The contract didn't speak to that. So we put in provisions there. We negotiated that you can't call in sick before or after a holiday without a doctor's note. That you are not eligible for overtime 24 hours after you've called in sick. So many of these things that exist in other contracts that just didn't exist in the local 400 contract. So when we have these regular conversations with department heads and listen to the issues that they're facing with some of the workforce, having HR on there and our labor attorney to say that's all within the bounds of the contract, then we really concluded, well, then we need to change the contract. So, I'd be happy to address this in whatever way, send a overview, highlights. I'd be happy to do that. But that's, these changes reflected a lot of what the leadership of our departments identified as issues. But in terms of what the city is receiving, in addition to these operational changes, increases in healthcare, they agreed to Juneteenth, and there are other, in exchange for another holiday so that we're not adding any more holidays. And obviously that's a priority for us. We want to get everybody on the same board to make Juneteenth a holiday for all of the bargaining units. So again, I can send an overview, but that's just kind of the broad strokes of this local 400 contract that was a very high priority for us.
Are we caught up now?
We are caught up. We have we have 10 with 400. This contract is 5 years, so it goes through till the end of 2025.
So what we're voting for is for the increases of the 3%.
Yes.
For 5 years.
Yes.
And then as well as to amend the contract so that we can pay them for 2021.
So, yeah, it will be, the only thing that would be retroactive are the wages, consistent with, the other agreements we brought before the council, is that the only thing that will be retroactive are the wages. But there is also in here an essential employee bonus, which is paid, which was identified in ARPA as an eligible expense for the city. And this is really, Local 400, for those that might not be familiar, these are the sanitation workers and the plow drivers and the people who can, people that work in the water department and sewers and 400, many of the people who continue to show up day after day after day during the pandemic when we couldn't necessarily guarantee to them that we knew how to create, we were doing the best we could to create a safe work environment, but these folks came, and largely uninterrupted city services for residents during those first few years of the pandemic.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Director Dunham, I appreciate all the improvements sound great. I appreciate your work on it. Everyone's. Isn't 400 the one that also includes the mechanics?
It does, and so we have language in the contract to talk about that commits us both to continuing the conversation on mechanics, and I can give you a little bit of the background on that after the meeting if that's helpful. But it does imply in here that we are committed to solving the issue of mechanics.
And you moved the CDLs, right?
What's that?
We dropped the CDLs for just coming in entry level, right?
So, depending on, we're trying, you mean dropping the CDL requirement? So sometimes what we'll do is if the CDL isn't really required for the position, then we can change what position we're looking for. So if, so that we might be looking for, I don't know off the top of my head, but a laborer 1 instead of a laborer 2, because a laborer 2 requires a CDL, and really all that we need is a laborer 1. So we're not, without going through county civil service, we're not able to change the requirements, but we're trying to be more diligent in looking at what kind of services and skills does this person need, and are we putting barriers up that we wouldn't necessarily need. So we're trying to only recruit for CDLs when we think we'll need a CDL.
Okay, because
but fortunately, the city hasn't had the same type of challenges that, the county or I guess maybe no new challenges. We always have challenges with recruitment and retention, but not anymore in terms of CDL. So in terms of plow drivers, and we welcome them and we want to have as many as we can, but it's really been the mechanics that's been the most difficult to recruit and retain. And so this contract commits us to continuing the conversation. Like I said, I can provide some additional context as well.
Can I just ask a quick question? Why 26 and 27 were withdrawn? Counselor?
Yeah, so we have some back and forth with CSEA, so I might have been a bit optimistic in submitting that we would be ready to vote on that contract. CSEA has come back to us with some concerns that they have in the tentative agreement, so we're withdrawing that. We'll rework the tentative agreement with them and then resubmit it.
They haven't signed.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm all set if you are.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Hogan.
Thank you, President Hudson. I have item 30, and I want to remind all my counselors, colleagues, that we have a public hearing tonight at 5:30. And for you new counselors who have never been through one of these before, I suggest bringing snacks.
And water, right? Right, it was quick last year, but don't say that now. Don't say that, because then they'll come. Counselor, who's taking Counselor Majok? I guess I am. Huh? Okay. You taking it or want me to take it? No. All righty. Counselor Majok has 31 through 33. So we need someone to come to the mic.
Councilors, Michael Collins, Commissioner, Department of Neighborhood and Business Development. So I can handle item 31 and certainly turn over Liberty Resources is here as is Syracuse Police for additional questions. We had a very informative committee meeting on this yesterday. And this is, again, is an item that is designed to carry on the really good work that's that started between Liberty Resources and the Police Department for diversionary purposes when it comes to people that are dealing with mental health crisis. Any questions I can answer or bring up any of the others that I've mentioned? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. 32. All righty, who's gonna address, oh, there you are.
Hello, Madam President. Hello, common councilors, members of the clerk's office. Item 32 is an item for the fire department to accept money from Syracuse University so we can provide a hazardous materials team to monitor the atmosphere inside the Carrier Dome during the Monster Truck Show, which is scheduled for April 16th. The Syracuse University will reimburse us the cost of overtime not to exceed $6,500. So we do this every year, every time there's a show, to monitor the air from the exhaust from the trucks. Does anybody have any questions?
Quick question, is that the total amount of overtime, or is it just a contribution toward what it costs?
They're gonna pay for the total cost. We don't expect it to exceed $6,500 though.
Quite a show for an educational institution, I'd say. That's a truck show.
Anybody else have any questions?
You know, Big Daddy Bodine's truck.
You know what?
I've never attended.
I'll check.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 33.
Hi, Councilors. Joe Cecil, First Deputy Chief. This is our website manager. We were hoping to have our website built by City Hall by now, but it's still in the works. So once again, we're asking to amend the contract with them, and no more than between $2,500 and $4,000 to manage the Syracuse Police Department's current website. Just as an example, even when we just changed district captains, we can't go into this website and fix anything or change anything. This company has to do it, and we have to continue to pay them until we have our other website up and running.
So will you be able to make changes with the new one?
Sorry?
You'll be able to make changes on the new website?
Oh, absolutely, because, yeah, it's going to be built by City Hall, and we'll be able to manage it ourselves. Yep. So, thanks.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Counselor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 34 through 54. All right, we'll start with, is this Kate? Nobody's here for this one? Oh, good, yes. Okay, got you. All right, and 35, I'm assuming, or are you gonna take it, or?
Oh, okay. You're not coming over here? Okay. Afternoon, counselors. So this is for an encroachment on behalf of the Addis Building. It will, it's a blade sign that will encroach 9.5 feet into the South Salina Street right-of-way. This has been reviewed by the departments and utility companies, and there are no major impediment to the request.
All right, I was trying to drive by earlier so I can get a visual, but you can see it kind of a little bit in the little picture, so it's not that bad, and it's very high, so it's not impeding on anything or anybody. Okay, any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, and now to the good stuff. Items 36 through 54. We do have the voting list. If we can, Michelle, just go in order to each one of them. And I know some of the, Counselor Schultz is new as a district counselor, and Cho isn't here, but he has a few of them on here. So if you can just go through individually and give us just a little background on them.
Yeah, so before I do that, I just want to kind of do a little bit of...
Michelle, yeah, can you take your mic and have a seat?
Can I request an alternate accommodation in the form of explanations I'm going to have to give about stuff that's on the sheet? It's really okay. I'm okay, I promise.
Okay.
Also, Michelle Spansky, Deputy Commissioner of Neighborhood Development, sorry. So I just want to do a little bit of background on all of the properties where we're at for following up on the end of Phase 17 and the next part of Phase 18. We have not had a large set of any land bank items for several votes now because we had exhausted all of the Phase 17 properties that were vacant properties. We were in kind of a holding pattern because of eviction moratoriums that were in place. That has since been lifted. The land bank is now accepting occupied properties. What we had done within NBD, there was approximately 400 properties or so that had not been previously either redeemed or addressed in the earlier parts of the phase that happened last year. We went through and did a manual review of all of those properties to figure out how much they owed and basically sorted them into two categories of save for Phase 18 or move now in Phase 17. In order to be eligible to move in Phase 17, a lot of these that we are going to end up moving, there are about 120 eligible rental occupied properties. In order for us to consider moving those forward, we had to have a record of no activity or attempt to make any sort of payment at any point or time from the start of the Phase 17 in the fall of 2019 up until this point. In a lot of these cases, we've seen that several of these properties have not had any activity for even dating longer back than that. So we're really just trying to make sure that we're dealing with the ones that have, to this point, made minimal effort. We are doing an additional batch of NBD courtesy outreach via phone to the rental property owners to make sure that they're aware that the properties are appearing on the agenda, and we're doing that in the cadence of as we're putting them forward within these kind of 120 properties to say, here's the date that they're on, were you aware of the taxes? Just because we understand that with everything that has gone on with the pandemic, the impact that that's had on rental property owners, we want to make sure that we've exhausted kind of all opportunities for them to be able to come in and redeem on the properties before we're bringing them to you. The other properties that we have decided to hold for Phase 18, any owner-occupied properties are automatically moving to Phase 18. We're not putting any of those forward. The reason for that being that we want to make sure that just because of the exact cadence of when COVID started in the spring of 2020 and when we started this phase, we feel it's most appropriate for us to be able to do a additional round of making sure that all of those owner occupants have a second chance at getting into any type of foreclosure prevention, tax trust, go to the workshop, all of the standard kind of processes that we typically put into place.
before you, what's phase 18, like you're saying 17?
Sure. So and so it's basically of all, since we have started the process of transferring properties to the land bank, we do them in these batches. And it's based on kind of the timing when we first started several years back doing this. It was based, I believe, on more of a geographic kind of assessment ward at a time, so that they could be smaller catchment areas. Now at this point where we're at, because we've been doing this for several years now, we're at a point where it's more attainable for a given phase to take all seizable properties and take those as a chunk phase citywide, so that we're effectively kind of caught up, if that makes sense, for kind of like backlogs, like we can just move them through on regular cadences. So it's basically just how we're grouping them. Does that make sense? Okay. Got it. All right. Dates. So phase 17 started in the fall of 2019. Got it. Sorry, I missed that clearly.
Do you understand? No.
So this has been the longest phase ever, essentially. Phase 18 will officially commence, we expect, by either the end of this month or the beginning of May. And that's just the very kind of pre-stages of owner-occupant outreach, first round noticing, all of that stuff. So the goal is basically, of these 120 properties that we have left in this phase, we'll break those out over the next 5 to 6 votes here, and then have a minimal amount of gap time of transition for the start of phase 18 properties that are the early ones that we think are ready to go.
Okay.
Does that all make sense for that? Okay. So our properties that we have here, in the order that they are on the agenda, they make a little bit more sense actually, in terms of, there's a bunch of clusters that are kind of on this that are not conducive to the order. So I will do my best here to keep this as simple as possible for everybody. So starting with 35 through 39, these properties are all owned by the same owner. I'm going to be sending out a slightly better summarized list of everything that I'm about to say here now for you all, with final dollar amounts. But so if you're looking for it on the sheet, don't worry if you can't find it. The properties all on Burger, so this is 116, 118, 130, 131. They're all owned by the same individual. All of these properties have a prior history of appearing in different phases. They were addressed during those phases. This individual has communicated with our office recently and stated that some of these properties they're attempting to try to sell, and there are some kind of health challenges that they're having. And I did also want to note that the same owner, it kind of falls into a category of the actual occupancy itself is delinquent, but that is one that we are not putting forward at all because it's owner occupied.
Okay.
So total dollar amounts on.
Is that on Burger as well?
It is also on Burger, yeah. That address is 136, but we are not putting that one forward at all.
So before you go on, so you have 4 houses.
It's not on that one.
On Burger that you're bringing up to possibly seize.
Correct.
Right. So I'm gonna just be very transparent. That's already a neighborhood who is struggling, right?
Understood.
And so there's 2 things. Some of these are rental occupied, so there's people inside them.
Correct.
Right? And then second thing is those people are gonna have to move or make a regular. And third is that neighborhood is already struggling.
Understood.
Now we're gonna have 4 more open houses possibly.
Yep.
Without a actual person to buy, and that's a really struggling neighborhood.
So yeah, and so essentially our goal that we are trying to accomplish here is with this of moving these items forward. My role is not to, it's a council's discretion as to whether or not it is best to move forward with these properties or hold them. We're simply putting forward the information that these properties have regularly been in this situation. They are still owed, and it is up to you all to
So
decide.
in this case, like this one person owns all of these properties and he's probably collecting rent and not paying his taxes. So in this case, he doesn't deserve to have these properties anymore. So it's just a matter of us, like when we had the meeting with Caitlin yesterday, just working with Caitlin to make sure that when the land bank, when they receive these properties, they give the person the option to stay in and then they'll rent to the landlord, to rent to the land bank. Or if they're in a position to purchase the house, then the renter then can purchase the house and then they'll probably take care of it more because it's their house now. Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm very aware of the process with the land bank process. My only concern is just making sure we don't know if they pay rent. Have we talked to them? Anybody?
So Patty Lynch in our office has talked with the wife of the property owner. So the property owner himself has a documented history of health challenges too. So that's part of the reason why I think they're coming back now again, because they've got pulled from previous phases when they were put forward. They're still having challenges with it. So what the owner's wife had stated most recently to Patty last week when she talked is that they're actively working to try to sell some of the properties. So as with any of these properties that we're putting forward now, if that were to happen and they were able to redeem on anything, they're able to do that up until the point of kind of final transfer date. There's a whole bunch of additional legal noticing that has to happen between now and then. So there's still time that is available for them to do that if they are able to pursue those options.
Did we ask them, did they have someone to pay the rent? Did the actual people that live there been paying rent? Did anyone ask them that?
I can confirm with Patty the specifics of who the tenants are and what those logistics are. I just want to make sure that I'm remembering correctly. So let me follow up with her to confirm and I'll let you know.
Okay.
The house is in good condition.
My understanding is that they need some maintenance upkeeps.
But you got the listing of closed code violations here, and obviously some of these houses, because of the lack of maybe
deferred maintenance, certainly.
There certainly have some issues as far as codes go. I don't know what kind of shape they might be in, but they're certainly not up to par. There's open violations too, so.
Okay, you can move on to the next one.
Okay. So our next kind of batch here, this is going to be inclusive of items 44, 40, 45, 48, and 49. These properties are all owned by the same property owner again. There's previous documented history of code interactions for a period of time. There's been no payment activity on any of these properties since they were effectively acquired, essentially, around the time that this person took ownership. In total, it's around $37,000 across all of these particular ones that are here. Patty did make contact with this owner last week. They stated that they were not aware that any of the properties were tax delinquent. These same properties have appeared in previous phases before, so.
Well, they all purchased at the same time?
There was a kind of staggered period, but, so it's an individual that has a portfolio, so. Any other questions on those?
And there's people that live in these houses, right?
Correct.
No, just so for the council's, and we went through this yesterday as far as the land bank's annual report. If this land bank takes them over, obviously they use Catholic Charities to relocate people who are living in there right now.
Correct. Yeah, and additionally, the tenants have the right of first refusal to purchase the property if that's something that is that they're interested in doing and potentially able to do. The land bank makes pretty extensive efforts to work with them, understanding that that might take time for people if they need to do some either kind of finding their own housing or any kind of financial improvements that they need to make to be eligible to take out a loan. They are very good about working with tenants to kind of negotiate what a timeline for that looks like if it's something that seems to be a viable option for everybody. Okay. Right. Anything else on those ones?
Nope.
Great. Items number 42 and 50. These two particular ones are also owned by the same owner. There was a very weird timing of when these properties were acquired. by this individual, and I suspect that there's a very good chance that this person missed the notices. It was a situation where they were purchased from other individuals that owed money on the taxes, so the taxes transferred with the properties. And from acquisition time, like I said, to when we sent notices out, I suspect that they were never received by this individual themselves.
Yeah.
They own a larger portfolio within the city that it has good track record, so.
He just called me.
Yeah,
so
Patty
I'm
talked to him last week.
afterwards, and then we
Patty
can figure
talked
it
to
out.
him. I suspect that these will, if they have not already officially hit finance for redeeming, I suspect that will be the case by Monday. So.
Yeah, okay. So I'll call him back after this meeting, and then I'll get with you.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
46, we would like to request to withdraw. That property has redeemed.
I was hoping you were gonna say that, but I saw it on here because I drove by today. So what I normally do when we have these, I look at the ones that are in my district and I physically drive by them to see who's living in them, see how they're taken care of. And this one, like, they just redid it, they painted
Yep.
it, they just did
Yeah.
a really good job. So I was
This
happy
this
that
was a very exact same situation where
Yeah.
timing of how it was purchased. I think they legitimately missed it. They weren't aware. Patty called them. They came in and did it same day. So
Yeah, okay.
happy outcome there. Item number 52, 605-07 Oneida. This is the only vacant lot that we are putting forward here. This is a particular request that is pertinent to the JMA development. So it's for land assembly for that larger kind of piece of development. It's a vacant lot that owes a very significant amount of back taxes. So, any other questions for that one? Great. 53, 215 Pattison Street. This is one extremely special circumstance owner occupant that was approached. Actually, the land bank was approached by family members of this individual. It's a senior veteran who has significant health issues. He is in the process of working with case managers of the VA to get into supportive housing. But the fact that that the house is still in his name is preventing that from happening. It's preventing him from being eligible to transition into that supportive housing. So we otherwise would have waited on this one, but because it will help this individual get to best outcome, we are respectfully requesting that we move it now.
So they want us to take it.
Yes, yeah, and there's been a excellent amount of multi-agency collaboration on making sure that this individual is able to get to kind of where he is looking to go. There's multiple different options and kind of backup options that people have been able to kind of line up. So we just need to get this logistical piece moved through. And then lastly, items 43, 47, 51, and
Wait, we're going backwards.
Yeah, she went backwards.
Okay.
I know, I'm
doing it on purpose.
It's the medication of her leg.
It's, yeah. 43, 47, 51, and 54. These don't necessarily, at first glance, all appear to be similar ownership trends. From looking at all of the properties, I believe that they are all tangentially related to one another, either through property manager relationships or ownership transfer relationships. They're all rental occupied properties that have pretty documented history of code violations. The specific property manager that is involved with a couple of them, Patty Lynch was able to make contact with that individual last week. Again, stated that they had no idea that the taxes were delinquent. There is a very long history of previous tax delinquency issues, even prior to this phase. So,
I am familiar with one particular property here. It has 8 open violations and 10 closed ones, and it's affects your stock property. So, in fact, any of these I'm in favor of getting all these properties over to the land bank in my district. So,
and I believe that exhausts all of the items, unless there's anyone that we think are missing.
Okay. I saw another one on here that had a note that you were withdrawing. Which one was that? The 108 Isabella Street, is that on here?
We were able,
It
that
didn't
got
make it?
pulled before it hit the agenda, so.
Okay.
I just have a question. Can you find out if they've been paying rent? Because that's gonna be
For
important.
the burger properties, yeah, I will. I talked to Patty about this. I just want to make sure that I have the details correct before I speak to it, so.
Right.
Michelle, thank you so much for your work on this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for tolerating me going out of order.
All right, so we have to go back to item 34.
And I'll be quick. Kate Auwater, Preservation Planner for the city. So the State Historic Preservation Office would like to hold the statewide preservation conference here in the fall. And in order to do that, and they have the Preservation Society of, the Landmark Society of Western New York actually administers the conference, but they need a fiscal agent to be able to do this. So they ask the host community to play that role. What happens is we apply for the grant and enter into an agreement with the State Preservation Office, and we turn around and then go and contract out to the Landmark Society to run the conference. And they, let's see, we tried to do this, or actually we did, yeah, we tried to do this in 2020 and then the pandemic hit, and so we're back again and hopefully be in person in the fall. So this legislation is to request, to allow us to write the grant and go into agreement, or an agreement with the State Preservation Office for the conference.
Okay.
Are additional monies needed for this conference and this training?
Not from the city. That would be covered through sponsorships and other fundraising that the Landmark Society will be doing.
Great.
Alrighty.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
That's it, Counselor Allen?
Yes.
All righty, Counselor Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 55 through 60. Items 55 and 56, Councilor Schultz, do you feel comfortable with those, the radar?
Yes, but I do have a question about 56.
Okay. For Director Dunham or Neil, whoever wants to handle that.
Good afternoon, Council. Neil Burke, DPW.
So actually it is for Director Dunham. There was an email that you shared on, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I'm sorry.
I'll be back.
I was looking. The print's so small.
Now you know how I feel. Everybody always wants Corey.
And although Counselor Driscoll likes to call me Director Dunham, you can just call me Corey, too. That's okay. You guys all take an oath. I do not.
Okay,
so.
Director Corey. So on Friday, April 1st, you had sent an email to the council about the details for this radar sign, and you really awesomely noted all of the places that these radar speed signs were going to be located. That's not in the legislation, so I wondered if that could be
Sure, we could amend it.
details, because the legislation looks a little dusty from the original proposal,
Sure.
which included the mobile units, which I don't think are part of this $30,000.
Yeah, we can absolutely amend it to reflect the updated info.
Okay.
Would that amendment require a new request letter?
I mean, it's the same amount of money, it's just that we're spending it, I mean, what we're spending it on, correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, is included in the request. It's just that it sounds like Counselor Schultz just wants us to say where we're going to place those signs. So it's not, it's coming from the same account, it's the same amount. Radar signs was included in the initial request, so I think it's just amending it to spell out specifically where we're going to place them. Right? Am I right, Neil?
Appendix A.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further questions, Councilor Schultz?
But the legislation does say the equipment shall include but not limited to mobile speed trailers.
Right.
And that detail that you gave us in the email doesn't list any mobile speed trailers, so.
Right, it would include, but it could include, but it doesn't. I mean, so, I mean, we'll amend it so that what we're submitting reflects exactly what I sent you guys on Friday.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor.
All right. Any other questions, 55 and 56? No? Good. 57, I believe all of these are married today, yeah? Or no, is that Neil? Nobody wants Neil. He's getting no love
You
today.
can give it to Mary if you want.
Go for it.
Good afternoon, Neil Burke, DPW. Item 57 is an agreement with JMT of New York For the scoping, design, and construction inspection phases of the Lodi Street striping project. This is a pavement marking project related to a New York State TAP grant. So it's an 80-20 match. The state is picking up most of the tab.
Good stuff. In the updated marking, are we adding any bike lanes? Anything new?
Yeah, we're going to look at bike lanes if we can fit them in, and nice new striping and epoxy, so the stuff that lasts.
Exciting stuff.
Question about that. Do we own that striping truck, or is that part of the services we're hiring?
No, this would have to be bid out, yes. So we wouldn't be doing the striping in-house.
Okay. Do we own equipment to do striping?
We do.
Okay. But we're not using it?
No. This is the specifics of the agreement, so it's a grant to get this work designed and then bid out. So it's not just a blanket check that we can use.
Okay. Any further questions, my fellow councilors? All right.
Thank you.
Let's move on to 58. 59, those are Mary's.
On the street to Jamesville Ave. We're amending the bond ordinance and the agreement with New York State DOT and the project authorization to include the construction and construction inspection phase, which is $3,058,000. We're changing how we're doing the bonding for this project so that we're only bonding for the local share. So this project received the 15% Marchicelli money during the design phase. Right now, there is no 15% Marchicelli allocated for the construction phase. That might change, in which case I would come back to you. So the net local share right now is 18% local share, which we will bond for. And that total amount, after you add in the $3,058,000, is $640,750. And then the balance, which is the 15% Marchicelli on the design phase, and the federal reimbursement is $2,919,250, and that will come from cash capital. And that's because we are going to be reimbursed that money. So we used to just do a bonding authorization for the whole amount on all our other TIP projects, but the budget director and finance commissioner have determined that they want to now take the money that we're getting reimbursed and apply that to cash capital versus the bond authorization. So we will only be bonding for the local share. It's confusing. It took me a while. That's not a question for me. I think typically TIP projects have not come from ARPA to date, so I think they're keeping it that way. ARPA money, ARPA's for new projects. This is an existing project.
You put it all together, the project. I'm just wondering if there's anything that prevents us from using ARPA when we said bonding for $650,000.
So without Jen or Frank here, I think Mary's point of when this project was initiated is relevant, because I think there is some sort of, if a project was already in the works before ARPA, yeah. So I think that,
that's it.
Yeah, I think that's likely, because we were awarded this some years ago, yeah. I will, always.
And
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, you had a remark or question?
Mayor, it was a lot of confusion around this the new practice here. I was just wondering, were you guys asking for a appropriation for the 2.9 or no, for appropriation of cash for the 2.9?
Yeah, we are adding the $3,058,000 to the project authorization and to the project.
Yeah.
But we're bonding for the $640,750, but the balance of the project, which is $2,919,250, will be cash capital.
Right. Yeah, and that's what, we'll get together offline and talk with Law about
Okay.
it, because I think we got some confusion going on. I just want to make sure we got the right legislation for you for this project.
Yeah, the short titles are confusing me,
okay, so,
but the
uh,
letters, I think, are correct
Yeah, we was,
as we revise them.
confused. We might have to add or take out something, so we'll talk about it offline.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
But we're planning to bid this and do the construction this summer.
Okay. Anything else? Was that the last one?
That's it for me. Thank you.
That's it? I do believe
You're done.
that's my last item. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor Green.
Thank you. Items 61 and 62 are waiver items to just advertise the public hearing for our budget hearing. And then 62 is the estimate for the city school district public hearing as well. Okay, thank you, Madam President.
And with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great day. I'm going.